Welcome. I want to welcome everyone to Secrets to Luminous Living, the magic of mediumship and meditation. My name is Melissa Boyd, and I am a spiritual medium and a luminous business coach and your host for the show on the Mind, Body, Spirit FM podcast network. This is my third show back on the air, and I am so excited to introduce you to Buck Blodgett. Hi, Buck. How are you today?
Hi, Melissa. I'm good. Thanks for
It's,
having me.
oh my goodness. I am so thrilled to have you. And I want to tell people a little bit about you, Buck, your work, your heart, your legacy, your daughter, Jessie, who was an incredible and is still an incredible being. So Buck Blodgett is the founder of the Love is Greater Than Hate project. And it's really to honor the legacy of his daughter, Jessie Blodgett, who was murdered by her friend in 2013. First of all, I want to say, as a medium and as a person, the idea of having a murder, having your only, and especially your only child be murdered is a horrific thing to live through in itself. And to go beyond that, to really go beyond the healing process, to go into the grief process and to help other people understand and work with a memory is just absolutely unbelievable. Buck's story today, I know, will fill our listeners with hope, healing, forgiveness, and he's going to talk about how to take anger and shift it to love. So, Buck, please tell us all about this mission and your beautiful, amazing daughter, Jessie, please.
That's a big question. I don't know where to start. I'll talk all day about the mission. So how can I focus it down? Of course, it started from tragedy. We lost Jess in the most unexpected and hard to believe, I guess shocking is a good word, overused word, kind of a way. It was a friend, and he was welcome in our home. And you know, when she was gone, the magnitude of the emptiness, it was just off the charts, and I had to do something. And I don't mean to be a genderist, but I've heard others say that sometimes moms need to they need to talk about it, and they need to feel, and dads need to do something. And I know that was true for me, and I've been doing something for 11 years, and I think Jesse's in it. I'm convinced she is. I wouldn't have said that over 11 years ago. I didn't believe in that over 11 years ago, but she showed me that I've been missing something for 53 years, and it's time to get to work.
Wow. Well, it's funny because I actually have to tell our listeners that before I met you, Buck, I actually met Jessie from the spirit world. And it was just such a divine thing. I was doing a fundraiser for the Center for Grieving Children in Maine, and we had a group of probably 70 to 80 people in a huge circle. There was a young woman who had just played the piano, just opening us up, and I stood up, talked about the Center for Grieving Children, their mission, how tragic it is to lose a child. And I turned to your cousin Hannah, who was sitting there, and I said, "Oh, I have somebody here for you." And I said, "Jessie," which was her grandmother, your grandmother that you shared together. And then I heard a whisper, "And Jessie." And I was like, "What?" Jessie and Jessie. And then I realized pretty suddenly I had two energies in the room. And when your daughter Jessie came in, she was like a butterfly. And now I know that's a very huge symbol. So today I'm actually wearing my blue butterfly earrings in memory of Jessie. And what was so beautiful about her message is, and I had no idea about Love is Greater Than Hate. I didn't know anything about you. Hannah had never shared anything about Jessie's murder with me. And she said, "My father forgave Dan." And I think that Hannah just about fell to the floor, and she stood up and she said, "I know Melissa doesn't like us to talk about things and, validate until later, but I have to tell you about Jessie." And in the first 10 minutes of the event, everyone was in absolute complete tears. And they were saying, "Oh my goodness." And they were like literally looking around the room and they were like, "Thank you, Jesse." And she really stole the show, and I do want to ask you, tell us about Jesse's incredible talent, her beautiful heart, her music, um, the book that you have, all those pieces.
First of all, I just have to say that for someone who hasn't experienced the kind of thing you just described experiencing, it just sounds so hard to believe. I just want to acknowledge that. It
Yeah.
sounds too good to be true. It is too good to be true, except it is. And if I hadn't been through this, just I don't even know how many times with different people over the past 11 years, I still have trouble. God or spirit or whatever name you attribute to whatever it is that's so much bigger than us and so beyond our comprehension and so incredibly full of love is just too big to get our heads around. But Jesse's made it clear to me. So you mentioned a book, it's called A Message from Jesse, and it's a couple basic themes. It's what happened from the day I got the phone call that every parent fears at the office, the day it happened, all the way through the end of the trial when Dan was
Oh,
sentenced. And part of that journey, that it's basically my journey from Jesse's murder to the end of the trial. And part of it is a spiritual journey. And and it includes about 2 dozen increasingly crazy happenings that are just defy worldly belief. So Jesse made it clear to me that her body is dead and gone, but she is not,
oh,
and that um, she's in this with me, and we're supposed to do something. And you also asked about the project, and I just start to ramble, Melissa, when
no,
I get
no,
asked
that's
about these
fine.
things.
I,
But
I want to, I just want to read for our readers from the Love is Greater Than Hate project page. It says, written from the depths of the soul of Jesse's dad, a message from Jesse. The incredible true story of murder and miracles in the heartland will touch you to your core, and it will. A journey through unimaginable pain, incomprehensible forgiveness, life changing insights, unexplainable signs of the afterlife, and finally, the discovery of a peace and purpose beyond words. A real life story that illuminates a pathway to the hidden blessings and healing always embedded in trauma. And, I just think you and I had a conversation recently on the phone about um, the work that you do when you go into prisons and you talk with people, and you once um, about the story of the man who you asked him 1 through 10, and he said
Caleb,
where he was in the age on the scale of anger. If you want to talk about that, and your work with the prison system, which is absolutely unbelievably beautiful.
it is beautiful and it's unbelievable. And the first part of it's that's unbelievable is that I want to do it. You know, if you would have told me 11 years ago that you'd be going into prisons and working with the guys and the ladies, I'd be like, no. But there's something incredibly beautiful about it. And maybe it's illustrated in Caleb's story. Caleb is a fake name. It's a true story. We're not supposed to identify our inmates or our people in our care, as we call them now in the Wisconsin state system. Been going in for 8 years. We've done over 40 programs with over 4,000 inmates and staff. And the
Oh,
best yet started last summer in the form of the forgiveness class. It's a 10 session, 3 month long weekly 10 weekly session series that literally takes them and me through our own individual forgiveness processes. And it begins with confronting our anger and resentments, and not, not denying them and suppressing them and repressing them and transferring them onto others inappropriately, and stuffing and burying it, but really dealing with it in a way that allows releasing and resolution, so that what's present now isn't anger, but what comes after it, a deep peace beyond understanding. and joy even.
Wow.
So Caleb um, didn't talk for the first 3 sessions. I think it was week 4 when he finally said something. I believe his first words were something real close to this: I don't believe in forgiveness. And by the way, Caleb wouldn't even look us in the eye. He wouldn't even look at the group. He sat
Mm,
with his head down. When we'd go around the group of 20, Caleb would just say, pass. Though that was always
wow.
his word, his only words in the
Mhm.
first 3 weeks. In the fourth week, he speaks up. He says, I don't believe in forgiveness. I'll never forgive her. I just want to kill her. It's basically what he said. Long story short, by week 10, we did a post-class survey and asked them 8 questions. And the first one was, how angry are you on a scale of 1 to 10? And they were supposed to give 2 answers. Their answer before class started, how angry am I? And now at the end of their forgiveness journey, how angry am I? Caleb said at the beginning, I was a 100. And just for
Wow.
some perspective, first of all, I looked around the room and I could, reading people's faces, I could tell that nobody thought Caleb was exaggerating. Like he really was 100,
Wow.
and and nobody else. And we had 56 guys start the class in 3 different groups in 3 different prisons. And 53 finished, which is amazing in and of itself. And Caleb was the only one who gave a number bigger than 10, and his number was 100. Well, he said, as I come in today in session 10, I'm a 2. And he said, and then
Wow.
after a
Oh my
brief
gosh.
meditation we did, he was a 0. And the point of this story for me is, imagine the different outcomes. We know 90% of our inmates will get out within the next 4 years, and Caleb will be one of them. Imagine the outcomes. A guy who was 100 on the anger scale of 1 to 10, who hated his ex so much that he wanted to kill her, versus a guy who's now a 0 to 2, and he's got some
Oh my
tools and
gosh.
meditations and resources to release his anger and find and replace it with a peace and a love and a joy and a purpose. This is the prison program that's kind of at the heart and soul. We do a lot of different things with Love is Greater Than Hate. That's one of them, but the others all have the same root, and it's
Wow.
making love greater than hate. And people can help. One guy isn't going to change anything. We need everybody.
Yeah. And I mean, I just want to commend you for your courage, your strength, your hope, your ability to go so deep. And, just watching this movement that you've created grow, I'm absolutely, inspired by who you are and what you do, how you're honoring your daughter. I'm going to be posting on Facebook a lot of things, some of Jesse's music, because she was um, an incredible musician, a singer, a creative spark in the world. And even though her life was cut short, she didn't waste a second. I realized that about Jesse. She did not waste a second. And I want to go to your values that you have here on the Love is Greater Than Hate project.com. And I love that you say empathy. We create space where all people are seen, heard, valued, and loved. And the other value, there's many, but one of them is forgiveness. We choose to live with open hearts, releasing the past and believing the best in ourselves and each other. What if
Got a lot
everyone
of work on those.
and
And
what
and I
about
often
if everyone listening here could just do those two things, empathy and forgiveness with respect? Amazing.
It is amazing. I'm blessed with a dear friend, mentor, and coach who I stole his mantra, and it's part of our values. And one of his mantras is open heart, open mind, open will. And then I added open eyes, because I
Ah,
can be a bit of a dreamer and I can be a bit naive. I don't want to only see the best in people, because this same coach also taught me, don't miss it when people are showing you who they are and telling you
oh,
who they are. We all missed it with Dan, so I don't want to miss it with people. I don't want to not see the evil in the world. I just want to not be um I just don't give the evil in my world any power to affect me. Like Dan did the damage. he could do 11 years ago on July 15th, 2013. But he doesn't get to continue to do damage by destroying my life and my joy and my peace and my happiness. That's mine. It's not his. And for me, that's one of the most powerful lessons out of Jesse's murder that I would love to share with everybody. Because it's,
Wow.
it's not just me that can say that. Anybody can do that. Anybody can claim their own joy and peace and power. And
Wow.
could I talk for a second about Jesse's music?
Oh my gosh, please, you can talk more than a second. I love her music. It whenever I have a day that's down, I'm like, "Oh, Jessie, she just is just incredible."
Thank you for listening to it. She was pretty talented. Oh, where do I start? At her funeral, her friend Ben said, um, I, what were Ben's words? It was something like, he's not a musician, but Jesse sensed that we're all musical beings. And he used
Uh,
to stand and listen in awe as she'd play her music. And then Jesse said, Joy found this in her 11th grade lit notebook about half a year after she passed. She found this quote Jesse wrote down. As far as we know, nobody ever heard it except for Jesse. And it just said, music is a uniting art, a universal language, a way to change the world. So in her name, we have
wow.
tried, we've launched this year the Jesse Blodgett Music Scholarship Program to end interpersonal violence.
Oh
We
my
did it from the
gosh.
stage at the Shower Arts Center in our small town of Hartford, where she performed many times.
Uh,
And Peyton and Brantley were our first two winners. And we
mm,
hope to go the endowment and give 30 or 40 a year nationally and, in years to come. Um, and if we can do that, every recipient will have to answer will have to give their best answer to two questions. What does love is greater than hate mean to you as a 10-year-old or 13-year-old in
oh
today's
God.
world? And how will you use music
Oh my
to
God.
change the world like Jesse wanted to?
Oh my gosh. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to pause for a break and we'll be right back. Oh my goodness, Buck, you're going to make me cry here. This is incredible. The world needs music and the world needs, the precious energy that young people bring. I think it's so, so important to, educate people how we can take a loss and turn it into tragedy. I mean, excuse me, tragedy and turn it into like triumph, which is really amazing. I think about, um, and I know I've shared this with you before. My listeners may not know the story, but when I was 16, I taught Sunday school, and my student Jimmy was murdered by a serial killer. He was 12 years old. And Beth, who works for the FBI, who I later found actually was involved, came to the trial with for Jesse. Actually came to the trial for Louis Lent when he was convicted of being a serial killer as well. And we had some really deep conversations about, you know, when a life of a child is taken, how it changes. It doesn't just change the family, it changes the community, it changes all the things that are happening. And I love that you're talking about interpersonal violence because it has so many layers to it, right? It has, looking at all different pieces. But it brings me to one of the things that happened when Jimmy was taken. It was in 1992, or excuse me, 1990. Was it 1990? 19, yes, it was 1990. It was October 22nd, 1990, he disappeared. What I did after that as an adult is I helped institute the Child Alert Foundation, the Child Alert System for the state of Maine, because it
Wow.
takes, if we can get out there in 24 hours about a child that's missing, we can help be found that. But what I found out is the Amber Alert system was actually put in place by Amber Harriman's family because she was murdered and there wasn't an alert system. So they created it. So when I think about what you're doing, Buck, I think about it's as big or bigger than creating the Amber Alert system. Like I feel like you, Buck, are creating the Amber Alert system for our hearts and for our communities. Honestly, I want to just say that and I've also spent time in advocacy, and I feel that people can get involved. So I know there's people listening right now that are like, oh my gosh, love is greater than hate. They're Googling it right now, they're looking it up, and they're saying, okay, what 3 things can I do? So Buck, how can they get involved either with love is greater than hate? What can they do in their communities? What would you tell them? First of all, we can buy your book for sure. So, and it's
That'd be great. All proceeds go to the project, and the more funds we have, the more we can do. So that'd be great. Trigger warning on the book: get a box of Kleenex and don't stop after the first chapter, the initial what happened. There's a lot more light than darkness, but there's a lot of darkness, and I don't hold any punches about the realities of what happened.
mm,
People can find us, they can find our website at ligth.org. That's short for Love is Greater Than Hate. And watch out, because your device, mine just did this today after 11 years. My device auto-corrected to light, which is not ligth, isn't quite light. So ligth.org. They can also find us on Facebook and Instagram and on YouTube. On our website is a Join Us page. If you go to the toolbar at the top, click Join Us, it will give you 7 ways to get involved, 7 things you can do to help. Aside from our website and helping us, the number one thing people can do is self-explanatory by the title of this new thing called See Something, Say Something.
mm,
There's different layers of how people can get involved with this movement and help us change culture. That's the first one. See something, say something. The next one, though, is when, you know, most people who experience a trauma, sexual assault, domestic violence, human trafficking, etc., never report. The majority of people, nobody ever knows, even their family.
wow.
Why? Because their experience is being doubted, judged, or
Mm,
even blamed, like it's their fault they were attacked. Frida Adler, famous criminologist, said this rape, sexual assault's the only crime where the victim becomes the accused.
wow.
So we can start by believing people who feel doubted. We can
Mm,
start by, instead of judging them, living with an open heart and an open mind and an open
wow.
will and hearing them. We can start by not blaming them for what happened to them. Like, what was she wearing? Like, who cares what she was wearing? What does it matter? Am I really going to blame
Absolutely.
my criminal choices and my violence on the clothing that another human being had on or not? Anyway, instead of doing that, we can replace blame with compassion and love.
Mm,
So there's that. But to me, the most subtle thing that's actually the biggest thing that all of us can do is take ownership of our environment that we
mm.
are all creating together. We're all co-creating this culture in which
Absolutely.
this is happening
Yes,
and
we
what's
are.
happening. Whether I've ever done anything wrong or not, I'll never rape and I'll never murder, but I am part of this culture in which it's happening. Who am I being that this is happening? Who am I not being that this is happening? Who could I be that would shift things? Who could I not be that would help things shift? So, at the deepest core, if we're going to succeed on this impossible mission, which our vision is the zero tolerance for interpersonal violence by the end of the century globally.
Mm,
And if we have a prayer of actually succeeding and achieving that vision by the end of the century, it's going to take, not one little organization, but it's going to take 8 billion people. How do you move culture? How do you move mountains? I was actually at Powder Hill in Pike Lake in Jesse's favorite state park. And it's a really steep little mini mountain. And I leaned into it. And I just had this weird thought, like, impossible to move this thing. And then I realized we do move mountains. We have gigantic machinery that moves mountains. And, love and forgiveness to me is the machinery that moves human culture mountains like the one we
Wow.
need to.
Uh, wow. I've got chills in my whole entire body, which, wow, that's just, I was thinking,
It's so funny because I'm not a person who thinks I make a difference. And I think this,
oh
I
my
believe
God,
this needs to be said. I think most
Buck,
of
this
us
is
are
so
people.
important. And I want to go back to the idea about the gender of grief. And I even think you should write an article about the gender of grief because it is important. I sit with people all the time and I do a lot of work with the Center for Grieving Children, of course, and sitting, and usually it's the mom that comes forward. And then when the child who was murdered or, committed suicide or overdosed will come through and they will talk about the father and she'll say, oh, he doesn't believe this. And I would say, good. And then the evidence that comes through is like, my father, John, who works at the mill, whose birthday is on October 3rd, who did this, who did that. And it's just like 2 minutes. It changes them. So I guess I would say to you, I know there's some mediums listening probably to the show or people who are intuitive. Don't be afraid to give the message and don't be afraid what other people think because you never know when you're going to change someone's life. It's really, really important. I also am sitting here looking at the Ho'oponopono prayer. Ho'oponopono, the ancient Hawaiian prayer that is just 4 lines. And it is said to say this poem, recite it, they say, uh, 3 to 5 times every morning. And it is these words. So if you're listening, I would write this down or go and find it. It is, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And, it's just so powerful. And as a medium, I sit with people and the spirits that come through talk about the last days of their life and they don't talk about, what they hated. They don't talk about, their fear. They talk about what they love and what was important. And I really do believe we are, as you said, in this evolution and this cultural shift where, we have to stop getting, you know, um, caught up in like what's happening. And I actually want to share something with you. So this morning I actually did a talk at USM on leadership, and I was one of 3 panelists, and we were asked the question about what will you bring forward into the world in 2025. So what I said was a declaration of conscience. So in 1950, U.S. Senator, um, Maine Senator, she was a U.S. Senator from the state of Maine, Margaret Chase Smith, was the only woman in the Senate at the time, was walking to the hall of the Senate to address the Senate and the president. And she was stopped by Joe McCarthy, and he said to her, Margaret, you look very serious. Are you going to give a speech? And she said, yes. And you're not going to like it. And so she got up there and she wrote what is now known to everyone in the Senate, whoever serves, as the Declaration of Conscience. And what she said is, we all need a moral compass. And her concern was that politics was becoming too divisive, and people were getting so angry that it was actually affecting the moral fabric of the country. And she said this. She said, "I fear that if we don't look at this, 3 things will happen. Anxiety will rise. We will have frustration and depression, and it could lead to a national epidemic of suicide." And she said that in 1950. And here we are in 2025. And I just want to be really clear. I was a lobbyist, but I was always a bipartisan lobbyist. And I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about human nature. And I do think, we need to change laws and things like that. But don't you think, Buck, it has to start with us first in our hearts?
Absolutely. And I also think one of the things I observed as a chiropractor for 30 years, you know how when you go to the doctor, you have to do the intake forms, you got to do the
Yes.
paperwork, and there's too much. And
Mm-hmm.
there's the part of the intake forms where there's a list of 50 or 60 of the most common things people have, ailments, and you're supposed to check. Yeah, I got that. No, I didn't have that. Yeah, I got that. The top 2 things checked every year for 30 years in a row on our new patient intake forms in our chiropractic office, which is all about back pain and neck pain and headaches and musculoskeletal stuff for the most part for many people. Top two things: number one, anxiety; number two, depression.
Wow.
So I know they're epidemic in our culture, and they're clearly going up in this past decade. And and I have a solution. We all have a solution. It's in us. It's
Yes.
already in us. But we
Yes.
have to wake up to it. It's just our focus on peace and love and joy and how we
Yeah.
treat each other. And it's going to
Wow.
take all of us.
It is. And and I think, for me, I was on Sonora Blog Talk Radio for, a couple years, and I went off radio for 10 years. And I said, you know what? It's time to start having conversations. And I think, if there's so much inspiration out there, and I appreciate your compassionate action. Really, it means so much. Um, so I guess one last question I will ask you is, you know, I guess you can answer either question or you can answer both. So, Buck, what is your secret to luminous living? And or what is your wish for the world at this time?
Oh, my secret to luminous living. I think it's two things. First of all, it's purpose. I
Mm,
found a purpose in the worst thing that ever happened to me, or it found me, really. Um, but I had to be open to it. I had to let it in, accept it, and follow it. And I'm not on your show to preach, but I wouldn't be it wouldn't be my honest answer if I didn't say that God isn't my secret
mhm.
to everything, to my
No, I
happiness, to
think
my
that's
joy, to
fantastic.
my
Yes.
success, yeah, spirit. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
And then the second question was,
What is your wish for the world at this time?
oh, that our mission is accomplished. So I told you what our vision was: the zero tolerance for interpersonal violence by the end of the century. But the mission is ending interpersonal violence through promoting forgiveness and
Mm-hmm.
presencing love. I guess my wish for humanity is that everyone has the deep, powerful, the profound, life-changing experience of forgiveness that I did,
Wow.
that changed me forever. And when the worst things happen to us in life, there's hidden blessings in them. But you have to be open to them and you have to receive them.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited that you are in the world. I'm so excited that you're doing what you're doing for people. I think it's absolutely mind-blowing. And I hope that everyone, goes and joins your mailing list. There's a lot of really exciting things that you talk about. You have events, you have inspiration, and it's really so. I want to thank you, Buck. Thank you from all my heart to your heart for what you do and how you do it. So
Melissa,
that was,
when,
go ahead.
oh,
Oh, you go.
are we done?
No, no,
That's a
keep going.
mutual thank you. When Jessie lost her life 11 years ago, her voice was stolen too.
Mm,
And this is her legacy. It is her voice. But, it's too late for Jessie. It's not too late for hundreds of millions of our girls and women and our boys too, and our men all over the world who've experienced trauma and who have a voice, but who don't think they do, or who haven't discovered the power of it. So if in our values, you'll also find the value of empowerment, which we define as we encourage everyone to find strength and confidence in their voice
wow.
because they matter. So thank you.
No, thank you. I love it. I just think it's so important. I wanted to let people know that I will be on the air every Thursday. A new episode will launch. And if you want to learn more about my services, you can visit me at melissaboyd.net or growyourknowing.com. I do have a couple of spaces left at my March retreat. It's March 14th to the 17th, 2025. It's our journey into conscious abundance. And I'm going to be going to Rincon, where my teacher, Kailash Nails, who's an advanced teacher of therapeutic yoga, for an immersive retreat. And we will be teaching people about how to integrate meditation in their busy lives, experience the essence of moving into unlimited time, how to manifest abundance in your sleep and elevate your vibrational frequency. And I'll be bringing my copper pyramid as well. So thank you, Buck, so much. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Be one and be well and grow your know.